The stock market trends upward as nobody really knows what's going to happen. Coronavirus continues to panic the world, and several fake news stories come out because of it. Another primary comes up today, with several states deciding to delay and other states going to the polls. And the Russian troll farm is seemingly going to escape justice after all. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. So much fake stuff that happened this week, just yesterday alone. And they tried to pull it and they tried to get rid of it. We'll talk about one story that has completely disappeared out of the news, and we'll talk about one that seems to have stayed in the news long enough for us to get a conversation going about it. But first, if you're new here or you're not familiar with any of us, make sure you go over and check out freedomscoop.com. We're adding new people every day or all the time. We've got a new blog coming up. I'm actually going to be reviewing the content of that coming up today, so check us out over there. It'll be an interesting idea, and I think that you guys are really going to like it. Even having not read it, I think I'm going to like it a lot. So go over and check us out there. You can see all the back episodes of Contemporary. You can see all the back episodes of The Generational Gap. You can see all the back episodes of Stephen Ignoramus. You can even go over there and see Ed's World, where I hosted Stephen Ignoramus. So go ahead and check that out over there. And we've got new stuff coming as well. But we've got a lot of news to get to today. And my oversleeping butt decided to really put myself behind the eight ball on this. So let's get through what we have today. Starting off, it looks like the Dow is going to open very, very well for the day. Looks like they haven't given an absolute number on any of this that I've seen, but Alan R. Elliott over at investors.com tells us that they're gearing up to go up. So, Dow Jones today, futures bounce, coronavirus news in focus, Moderna, Regeneron, Co-Diagnostics spike. So a lot of the medical companies are going up here. Let's see what Alan has to say. Stock futures geared up for a possible bounce Tuesday, even as stocks in Europe proceeded to new lows. Coronavirus news remained the hub of the stock market attention, as federal rulemakers hustled to pass stimulus measures while states continued to harshen orders aimed at containing the spread of the pandemic. Caterpillar, Pfizer led the Dow Jones today. McDonald's was the Dow Jones laggard after announcing its restaurants would close their dining areas. Biotechs Moderna, Regeneron Pharmaceuticals, and Co-Diagnostics scored some of the biggest pre-market moves. So all of this is a bit expected here, especially with the construction industry. It's starting to get nice out, and people are starting to go back on the road. So your Caterpillar is going to be out there, and they're going to be up. Cummins is probably going to go up, maybe not as much as Cat, but Cummins is going to go up. And there's two things beside that. Your heavy truck makers are going to go up a bit too. And there are two sides to that, of course. Right now, companies are struggling to get product to the shelves so people can go back and buy them, especially the toilet paper, because the supply chain seems to be the grocery stores and nothing else. So they're running out to get that out there. The trucking industry is going to see, I think, a little bit of a boon coming up here, and I think some of these loads are actually going to go up in price, so you'll see that. But the parts for the stuff that break down are going to go up, and yeah, people are going to go out and start working on the road. I mean, the sun is out right now. I don't have the studio lights on at all. So it's getting nice out. It's getting to the point where people can start doing the work on the road. Pfizer, Moderna, Regeneron, that's all going to link into the COVID-19 outbreak, because the testing and the treatment are going to be out there. They're going to be taking donations along with any other bit of money they can get their hands on to go start working at a lot of this. But McDonald's being the laggard. Now, McDonald's just announced that they are going to close their dining areas off to people, so they're going to be takeout only. Whether it's walk in and grab the bag or go through the drive-thru, which I'm guessing that most people are going to be doing the latter and not the former, that's going to be not a significant chunk. I guess most of their business is drive-through and takeout, but that's going to be a good chunk of people that aren't going to be able to be serviced by McDonald's. I mean, yes, you've got your drive-through crowd, you've got your takeout crowd. I am in the latter of the two, but the thing with McDonald's is it was a nice, cheap place, and some of the older folks from the silent generation and the upper end of the baby boomer generation do like to go over and have a conversation with their fellow retirees over a cup of coffee at the local McDonald's. You see it at every single one you go to, constantly. And if they have that dining area closed off, which is probably a good thing considering the fact that this outbreak seems to pretty exclusively focus on the elderly. But if you see that demographic drop off, you're going to see the stock in that restaurant drop off as well. So the fact that they have a drive-through, I think, is going to keep them afloat for the most part. But yeah, the fact that they are taking away that aspect of themselves is going to hold them back. So that'll be interesting to watch. I can't wait to see where we wind up on the stock market, because it goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. It is, I mean, they've been calling the stock market the roller coaster for my entire life, but it is definitely been that for the last couple weeks. So that'll be interesting to watch. MSN also has a story on the stock market climb. This is from Fred Imbert over at CNBC. Via MSN, of course. Stock set to bounce as Wall Street attempts to rebound from the Dow's third worst day ever. Stock futures and pre-market trading exchange-traded funds pointed to a bounce on Tuesday following the Dow Jones Industrial Average's third worst day ever. Trading overnight, however, was very volatile, with futures giving back more than 1,000 points as investors tried to weigh the uncertain economic impact of the coronavirus outbreak. Dow Jones Industrial Average futures included a gain of more than 260 points at the open. The S&P 500 SPDR ETF gained more than 2% in pre-market trading. Earlier in the session, futures contracts tied to S&P 500, Dow Jones Industrial Average, and NASDAQ 100 hit their upside limit, triggering a halt. In non-U.S. trading hours, stock futures are halted if they hit their downside or upside limits, pinning those contracts to their upper or lower bounds. The halt is meant to ensure that opening trade is orderly and not emotional. So, just yesterday they hit the downward trend where they hit the circuit breaker and they couldn't sell off for just a second to stem the downward trend, and now they're hitting the circuit breaker on the other end. So, it is definitely going to be a wild ride. As soon as I am off of Contemporary here, I'm going to go over and check and see where they actually opened up, because they'll be opening up in 5 minutes from where we're sitting right now. If you are watching live, if you're listening back on the audio platforms, you already know what happened, so no spoilers, no getting in that time machine and coming back and telling me. But yeah, it has absolutely been wild. And you notice too, when you go on your trending on Twitter, and we'll read trending on Twitter later because it is Tuesday, you'll notice the fact that whenever it's going up, nobody talks about it. And whenever it's going down, it's the end of the world. And it is a top trend on Twitter. David Hogg was running his mouth a little bit earlier. I should have grabbed the tweet off of that. But yeah, David Hogg was running his mouth saying that if the stock market is dropping, we need to get rid of the president. But for those of you who don't remember what David Hogg is famous for, because he's completely irrelevant at this point, he was the kid that profited off the cold, dead bodies of his 17 classmates after that lunatic Nicholas Cruz decided to go in and shoot up the school, after the Broward County Sheriff's Department failed in their reporting of his mental state for red flag laws. So keep that in mind. Speaking of the coronavirus, we had several bouts of fake news that happened yesterday. And first I want to touch on the one that was scrubbed from everything. And the headline is actually still on CNN, saying that Trump went out and told everybody to go out, all the governors to go out and try and buy their own stuff, without actually finishing out the rest of it. That was a Mara Gay flub that we had there. And we will read the article that is replaced on the headline on CNN right now, because they've heavily edited the article so they don't come off as completely fake. But I want to touch on this one that was completely fake, that was bought hook, line, and sinker by the mainstreams as well. So 23 hours ago, so probably about 9:30 in the morning yesterday, Jim Sciutto, former Obama staffer, who is now a CNN contributor, tweets out, "New. There are active discussions within the Trump administration to encourage a possible curfew across the nation in which non-essential businesses would have to close by a certain time each night," at CNN reporting. Now, the first thing that I did As soon as I found out that this happened, was I went right in and tried to verify the fact that CNN had reported that. And lo and behold, on CNN's website, this story was nowhere to be found. In fact, there was nothing indicating anything that Jim Sciutto said or anything about a curfew. I actually did a word search for curfew and there was still nothing anywhere on the website for that. So that was entirely fake news, which this was brought to my attention because Brady Leonard over at the No Gimmicks podcast had retweeted the press secretary for the vice president, Katie Miller, saying this is not correct. But before we get into that, let's see the news outlet that did buy this hook, line, and sinker. This is from metro.co.uk. Jimmy McCloskey writes, Donald Trump plotting curfew across entire U.S. to try and curb coronavirus. CNN chief national security correspondent Jim Sciutto tweeted Monday there are active discussions within the Trump administration to encourage a possible curfew across the nation in which non-essential businesses would have to close by a certain time each night. President Trump's daughter Ivanka Trump, who works as a White House advisor, appeared to signal her support for such a move Monday after sharing a photo of deserted rush hour streets in Washington, D.C. I read the tweet and I did not get any of that out of what she had said. Ivanka retweeted the photo by the New York Times journalist Doug Mills, initially just with the word good above it. She has since shared the picture again with the caption, "This is why social distancing works." The rumored curfew comes despite President Trump telling Americans to take it easy and relax when asked about nationwide panic buying on Sunday. So, Metro UK bought this CNN line hook, line, and sinker and reported on it right away. And of course, much of DC is under quarantine right now, as is New York and as are several other cities across the country. So yes, looking at some of what we're seeing with rush hours being less than we would normally expect them to see, yeah, it's obvious and it is good because that means people are taking it seriously, the fact that we do have something spreading around this country that could infect people. And while it seems that it may be very minor to most people who get it, you still don't want to get to the spread out to people where it might actually affect them horribly. So we're going to look over at Red State. Now, usually I'll only take NewsGuard verified sources, but I want to take this article from Red State because we're actually counteracting what would have been fake news and would have been blocked by NewsGuard here. Bonchi over at Red State says CNN claims Trump will encourage a national curfew, but is it fake news? The media continue to cover themselves in glory during the current Wuhan coronavirus crisis. Just yesterday, a news story spread that President Trump was attempting to bribe a German pharmaceutical company in order to secure a vaccine only for the United States. That turned out to be nonsense, as the confirmation by the German minister in question had his statement retracted, either due to it being misinterpreted or made up. You'd think in a time as tenuous as this, the media could forego their anonymously sourced trash for a period of time. It for no other reason than to not cause further panic both among the people and the economic markets. But nope, CNN is going to keep it rolling, in which we go back and reread Jim Sciutto's tweet. Such an announcement would of course further depress the economic situation we are in. A curfew would mean less spending and an even further escalation in the measures being taken. It would also be a questionable strategy. The disease is no more likely to spread after 10 p.m., for example, than at 10 p.m. In theory, it'd actually be better for people to spread their shopping out, especially where 24-hour stores are available, as it will decrease the size of crowds at any given place. That is absolutely true. And that's something that's important. I mean, when I worked second shift, I loved going to the grocery store after work. There were a couple 24-hour grocery stores in the city that I was working in at the time. There are actually a couple around here, but since I'm in bed by 9 or 10 every night, I can't really take advantage of it anymore. But yes, shopping at midnight or later is awesome because there's next to nobody there. And if everybody got the chance to take advantage of it, I mean, there would still be people around at the 24-hour, at the late night options. And actually, you'd probably increase some of it a little bit too as they were going along. You'd probably increase some of the volume after midnight, but you would take some of the volume off during the day. So, yeah, that would be awesome for everybody to do. So, that's something to keep in mind. And like I said, Red State is an opinion piece, so I can't call this NewsGuard. I just thought it was an interesting thing to share it with us here. So, now we will look at the article that replaced the article about Trump telling state governors that they're on their own. And of course, we got pushback from that all day yesterday as well, because he didn't actually say that. Jake, the former CEO of Freedom Scoop, had a lot to say about that as well. But this is from Barbara Starr, Betsy Klein, Megan Vasquez over at CNN. Trump says he's considering recommending quarantine for coronavirus hotspots. Go away, video. I don't want to watch you. President Donald Trump said Monday that the White House is evaluating whether to encourage isolation measures such as quarantine or curfew in certain novel coronavirus hotspots around the country, but is not considering issuing these measures nationwide. Funny, because you were just talking about curfews and telling states they're on their own. At this point, not nationwide, but we may look to certain areas, certain hotspots, as they call them. We'll be looking at that, Trump said during a White House press briefing. But the president added that no decisions had been taken regarding a national curfew. We haven't really determined to do that at all, and hopefully we won't have to, he said. That's a very big step. It's a step we can take, but we have decided not to do it, he added. So they did want to get that little quip in about him talking about a national curfew. I love how they tried to sneak that in. Hopefully nobody would notice that. The comments come amid active discussions within the Trump administration to encourage a possible curfew across the nation in which non-essential businesses would be encouraged to close by a certain time each night in response to the coronavirus pandemic, according to an administration official and another source familiar with the matter. So there is, once again, your anonymous sources right there. So yes, they replaced the idea that Trump had said, governors, you're on your own, with this rehashing of what Jim Sciutto said to try and cover their asses, because they got called out on this hard. So that's interesting over here. And if you go on CNN's website and you look up the headline, it's probably about the third from the last one currently on the coronavirus tab. And if you look at the headline that says Trump tells governors that they're on their own, this is the article that comes up. So yeah, they scrubbed that from the internet hard. Really, really, really hard. In other news, we actually had a cyber attack hit. This comes from over at Fox News. James Rogers over at Fox News says, cyber attack hits Department of Health and Human Services, report says. With the U.S. battling to contain the coronavirus outbreak, a cyber attack hit the Department of Health and Human Services on Saturday, Bloomberg reports. Citing 3 people familiar with the matter, Bloomberg reported that the attack aimed to slow down the department's computers but did not have any meaningful impact. On Sunday night, the National Security Council tweeted that text message rumors of a national quarantine are fake. There is no national lockdown, as CDC.gov has and will continue to post the latest guidance on COVID-19, it tweeted. Citing the people familiar with the matter, Bloomberg reports that the tweet was related to the hack and the release of the information, or misinformation. Wow. I need to read a little bit closer here as we go along. HHS has an IT infrastructure with risk-based security controls continuously monitored in order to detect and address cybersecurity threats and vulnerabilities, said Caitlin Oakley, a spokeswoman for HHS. In a statement emailed to Fox News on Sunday, we became aware of a significant increase in the activity on HHS cyber infrastructure and are fully operational as we actively investigate the matter. Early on, while preparing and responding to COVID-19, HHS put extra protections in place. We are coordinating with federal law enforcement and remain vigilant and focused on ensuring the integrity of our IT infrastructure. The FBI declined to comment on this story when contacted by Fox News. So, yeah, that's once again, we're looking at some anonymous sources, but I could see the fact that people would be doing some of this as well. I mean, kids are assholes, and kids who learn how to hack are kind of assholes too. It's funny to watch, and it's really, really eerie to think that people could get into a government computer that easily, but such is life. Should just go to show you that the government doesn't have all the answers anyway. So, with COVID-19 being out there and everything else going along with all of this, we do have a primary going on, but 3 states that were supposed to primary today decided that they were not going to because of concerns about the outbreaking virus. But we'll look at who is supposed to be on the or going to the polls today. This is from Fox News by Tyler Olson. March 17 primaries. Here are the states voting and the delegates at stake. Democrat voters will head to the polls on Tuesday to vote in the party's first set of primaries after voters have the chance to see the last 2 remaining contenders for the Democratic presidential nomination, former Vice President Joe Biden and Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, go head-to-head in a debate. Biden has taken control of the race after wins in 10 states on Super Tuesday and at least 4 states last Tuesday. He now holds a significant delegate lead over Sanders in what became essentially a one-on-one race after billionaire Mike Bloomberg and Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren exited the race following Super Tuesday. Sanders admitted the March 10th primaries were not a good night for his campaign, while saying he would stay in the race for the Democratic nomination on Wednesday. So right now, currently, we have 3 states that are going to the polls out of 6 that used to be going to the polls. Arizona, Florida, and Illinois will be going and casting their votes today, with Ohio, Louisiana, and Kentucky all postponing their primaries until this whole thing is over. So, looking at Arizona, Florida, and Illinois, these are all heavy delegate-rich states, and Arizona may go either way because it does have a lot of California transplants in it, but it is also it's a fairly conservative state, so I think the Democrat Party in the state is going to still swing somewhat to the center. That could go either way on my eyes. On complete honesty, I can't really call Arizona, but we may see a situation like Washington State as well, where it's entirely too close to call for days and everybody winds up within a half a percentage point of each other. But Florida and Illinois, Bernie is screwed. Absolutely screwed at this point if those 2 states are going to the polls today. Now, Florida has 219 pledged delegates to give out. In a state that is mostly populated by old people, libertarians, people who came down from Georgia and Alabama, and Cuban immigrants. What do you think the message of socialism and communism are going to do in Florida? That might be enough to put Sanders out of the race yet tomorrow, with 219 delegates going mostly to Biden. I think Bernie will take away some of the delegate count. I don't think he is going to get anywhere near what he got out of a state like Michigan or Missouri. I think he is screwed at Florida right there. And Illinois, of course, has 155 pledged delegates, but the thing about Illinois is, for whatever reason, even downstate, they still love Barack Obama. And of course, we all remember the fact that Barack chose Joe Biden as his running mate and his vice president. So there's a little bit of bromance going there. And even if Barack chooses not to endorse Joe Biden at this point, which he still has not done, there is still that nostalgia for the Obama administration in the state of Illinois. And especially given the fact that most of those delegates are going to come out of Chicago anyway, with very few of them coming out of Champaign and Springfield. Yeah, that's going to be a landslide for Biden at the end of the night on this. So check out the results coming in. I don't think I'm going to cover this one tonight. I promised that I might do it for the last couple, but I didn't. But I will be watching this closely and probably laughing as hard as I can. Now, of course, this coming on the heels, and this is from over at CNN. Wrong story. I gotta go to the CNN tab and see a picture of Anderson Cooper thinking because we walked away for long enough that it put the advertisement up. Because for whatever reason, everybody wants to see Anderson Cooper thinking. Ohio governor announces polls will be closed Tuesday over coronavirus. This is from Dan America over at CNN. Republican Ohio Governor Mike DeWine announced late Monday night that polls will be closed in the state on Tuesday as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. The order came from Ohio Health Director Dr. Amy Acton, who said she was ordering the polling locations in the state of Ohio closed on March 17th in order to avoid the imminent threat with a high probability of widespread exposure to the COVID-19, with a significant risk of substantial harm to a large number of people in the general population, including the elderly and people with weakened immune systems and chronic medical conditions. Acton said that the order shall take effect immediately and remain in full force and effect until the state of emergency declared by the governor no longer exists, or she modifies the order. Early Tuesday morning, Ohio Supreme Court rejected a challenge to the poll closure by a candidate for county judgeship. The late-night change is the latest turn in a confusing saga that played out hours before voters were set to go to the polls in Ohio, and it highlights the depth to which election officials are struggling to balance protecting the public and allowing them to cast ballots. DeWine earlier on Monday asked a court to move the primary election to June amid the pandemic, only to be denied by a judge later in the day. It's not clear whether the order to close the polls as a health emergency will violate the court's ruling. So, this comes along the heels, of course, that Louisiana and Kentucky were also walking away from the polls, which all three of those states I expect to go handily to Biden as well at this point. With Tulsi being non-viable at this point, I'm pretty sure that we're not going to see the broker convention that I was praying for. And I just hope that Bernie stays in long enough that the revolution mounts and rises and people still get mad and go after the DNC in Milwaukee, because I really want to see it all happen. I want to see it all go down when the Bernie Bros get screwed out of the revolution for the second time. Call me crazy, and I do actually plan to be there. Stephen and I pretty much made the announcement last night on Ed's World that yes, we both plan to be there at Milwaukee at the DNC to see all of this go down. So that's going to be fun to see, and yeah, I'm pretty sure that there's no path for Bernie to win the nomination at this time. So amid all the coronavirus news, which of course is all we're going to talk about again, we did have one other news story to cover out of this that got almost completely forgotten. This is from Fox News, from Greg Ree. DOJ abruptly drops once heralded prosecution of Russian troll farm initiated by Mueller. In a striking and unexpected abandonment of a once heralded prosecution initiated by special counsel Robert Mueller, the Justice Department moved Monday to drop charges against two Russian companies that were accused of funding a social media meme campaign to further their strategic goals to sow discord in the U.S. political system, including the 2016 presidential election. Late Monday, with jury selection in the case set to begin work in just 2 weeks, a federal judge granted DOJ's motion to kill the prosecution for several counts of conspiring to defraud U.S. agencies tasked with combating election interference. The government acknowledged the Russian companies were never likely to actually face punishment anyway and cited possible national security risks with going forward to trial. Concord Management and Consulting LLC and Concord Catering were among 3 companies and 13 individuals charged in February 2018 by Mueller. Their alleged criminal effort included social media postings and campaigns aimed at dividing American public opinion and sowing discord in the electorate, officials said, although no impact on voters was ever demonstrated. So what we're looking at right now, especially given the fact that Mueller was in charge of this and he was answering to a lot of the DNC on much of what was going on. I know he was supposed to be working at the pleasure of the president, but the president let him go pretty much at large to show that he had nothing to hide. But we were looking at a very symbolic indictment of people who are never going to be extradited out of Russia. I mean, especially if the one guy has ties to Putin. Putin's never going to let him go. So we've got these indictments sitting up on the table that the prosecution has no way of granting their right to a speedy trial to, with no extradition in place. What are they going to do, to be completely honest? So rather than just letting this sit on the books, the DOJ has decided, yes, to grant these foreign nationals their right to a speedy trial, because remember, rights are granted by God and not the government, or your creator if you happen to be an atheist. Rights are granted at birth. Therefore, they have the right to a speedy trial, and the DOJ doesn't want to try and do this anymore. It doesn't want to face the... I mean, there's so much that goes along with this as well. Foreign relations, foreign trade. Russia and the U.S. are already going at it because of the Nord Stream 2 sanctions that were going on there. This was never going to happen. This trial was never going to happen. So, yeah, just let it go. And, of course, it's a cover-up because it's the Russians and Donald Trump is in Putin's pocket, even though he sanctioned them on a pipeline that was not in our interests, and all sorts of other stupid bullshit that we would hear if this would actually have gotten to the mainstream news around the COVID-19 outbreak. But, yeah, the whole indictment was symbolic to begin with. So, yeah, just let it go at this point. Good on the DOJ for that one. Yes, I would have loved to see justice be served, but you're sitting at a point where you've got so many diplomatic ties that go along with this that you'd never be able to get it out in a speedy and prudent fashion. So it is Tuesday right now, and on Tuesday we read the trending hashtags over on Twitter and decide what we think about them, or what I think about them. So let's see what we have going on here. Of course, on the top trending is COVID 2019. So let's see what's trending off of that. JJ Leahy, the mild moderate, friend of the show, says, on the same day I've read from progressive Democrats that delaying the Ohio primary is voter suppression, and also that keeping the Florida primary on the original date is voter suppression. Nice. Daydreams, New Jersey lockdown day 1. I'm still able to buy food as long as I order takeout, but it seems like buses are heavily discouraged. Any seating where people might get real close to each other, I'm literally only outside because I have to be. So yes, people are still complaining about COVID-19, and that's going to be trending for a while. It'll jump up and back down, but that'll be trending for a while. This is an interesting one. Chinese virus, because when I went to bed last night, American virus was trending, and a lot of people were accusing the Chinese of getting 50-cent workers to go and post American virus to Twitter to try and get that to trend instead of Chinese virus. But failing New York Times, Chinese virus is crazy. Former newspaper, that's a friend of the show as well. I haven't seen him for a while. I have no idea who the guy is, but I would love to get him on Ed's World at some point. This Chinese virus is crazy. Oh my God, Tom Brady announced he won't be returning to the Patriots. Is that still in the trending? No, they moved that out. Yeah, I did want to see what was going on with Tom Brady. I guess the failing New York Times let me know. So, looks like Tom Brady's not going back to the Patriots. That'll be fun. But yes, we have this will be an interesting one. It's a blue check. We're going to war with a deadly virus led by a president who is a serial liar and a bigot who calls COVID-19 the Chinese virus to give red meat to his base, and whose only concern his entire life has been what's good for him personally. What could go wrong? I love the fact that Dean Obeidallah has triple parentheses out there as well, because who doesn't love to see that? Carmine Sabia says, it is a Chinese virus. It is the Chinese government that is the issue. It is their government that hid the facts around the world. It is not the Chinese people. If you are attacking random Chinese people, you are a dangerous moron. Well said. So yes, of course, everyone's up in arms over the fact that Trump calls this Chinese virus because of the fact that it originated in China. Big stretch there. Florida primary is trending. We already read this tweet from JJ Leahy. Coastal Elite says I need to go vote for Joe Biden today, even if I have to wear a hazmat suit. IG Fat Fab Feminist says I will be going to vote for Bernie Sanders, even though going to vote is a potential risk. Having 4 more years of Trump is not something I can have on my conscience, and will happen if America nominates a centrist again. So yes, the Bernie camp and the Biden camp are definitely going at it on this primary day. So I'd love to watch that. Jessica Kelleher has her I voted sticker on a bottle of Purell. So that's fun. And the last trend that we have is my pandemic survival plan. Mr. Race Bannon says hiding in this cool toilet paper fort. Robin has a gif of an armadillo. It is GIF, not GIF, by the way. Hide until it's safe to come out. My pandemic survival plan. Golden Perla says me after eating. I can't do the video on this one. So Morris Animal Refuge. My pandemic survival plan: adopt, foster a work from home buddy to survive social distancing. The refuges is closed, but we still have pets looking for homes, and they need you more than ever. We're waiving adoption fees for most pets. Find out how to help. So yeah, that's something that good that comes out of this. Waive the adoption fees, get people in. Huh, that's funny. Larkin Simone doesn't know how to proofread. My pandemic survival plan: wear Axe body spray. Everyone will run social distancing, baby. Yeah, that's pretty well true as well. So that's our Twitter trending here. Thanks for everybody who came in the live chat. Of course, on Friday we will shout out. I'm going to get off the stream here. I'm going to write all your names down on the page so we can get you the shout out here. On Friday, we shout out everybody who was in the live chat. So thanks everybody for coming by. We will be watching the results come in. I will probably not do a live stream for that. Otherwise, we will be back here tomorrow to see what happened with the third Super Tuesday, which is much, much less super at this point, and see what else happened in the news and the stock markets as well. And of course, tomorrow night we will be playing some more Dead Money, so come on over for Ed's World Gaming on that. But until then, whether you join me here, you join me there, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.